The valley was quiet. Too quiet. A pale fog rolled over the cliffs, hiding the jagged rocks and the scorched earth from last night's storms. A cold wind blew, carrying the smell of ash and wet stone. The dragon pack circled above, wings cutting through the gray sky, their shadows stretching across the empty ground below. Their eyes searched for any sign of the hatchlings, but there was nothing. Eryx, the pack leader, lowered his wings and hovered near the cliff's edge. His scales gleamed dark under the first hints of light, and his eyes, sharp and golden, scanned the valley floor. Normally, the hatchlings would be noisy, chirping and fluttering around, eager to follow their elders. But now there was silence. A silence so deep it made the blood in Eryx's veins feel heavy. "This is wrong," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "They never wander this far. Never alone." Lyra, his scout, hovered beside him. Her scales were silver, catching the weak light as she tilted her head. "Maybe they just slept in the caves," she suggested, but even she did not believe it. Her tail twitched nervously. "But the caves are empty, leader. I checked every entrance." Eryx's heart thudded. He had trained his entire life for this. Dragons ruled this world and no predator could challenge them. Humans were weak, short-lived creatures who hid in crumbling ruins or under the earth. Yet now he felt a strange, gnawing unease. He smelled traces of human smoke in the air, faint and bitter, like burnt wood mixed with something unfamiliar. He signaled to the others. "We split. Do not return until you find them." The pack responded with a roar that shook the valley walls. One by one, dragons took different paths, wings slicing the fog, claws ready to tear through anything that might harm their young. Eryx stayed behind, circling low, watching the shadows. His mind replayed the events of the night before. The hatchlings had been playing near the lava vent, chasing each other with bright, clumsy wings. He remembered their small chirps and the smell of warm scales. Then the storm came. Heavy ash rained from the sky, lightning tore the air and the ground shook. Eryx had thought they had run to the caves, but now he did not know. Hours passed. The sun began to rise, painting the valley with streaks of orange and gold. Still there was no sign of life. The silence pressed against Eryx's chest like a heavy stone. His tail lashed behind him. He could hear the distant cry of a mountain bird, but nothing else. No chirps, no flapping wings, no human screams. Only the wind. Suddenly Lyra's voice crackled in his mind. "Leader, I see something. Far below, near the broken rocks. It's moving." Eryx's wings beat faster. He descended, the air whipping around him. Below, among the jagged stones and bent metal, he saw a shape. At first it looked small, weak, almost invisible. But then he realized it was a human. A human sitting on the ground, hunched over something that glowed faintly in the early light. The human's arms were wrapped around tiny shapes. Hatchlings. His heart jumped and fire sparked in his throat. "Stay back," Eryx roared. His voice echoed across the cliffs, a warning and a threat. "Do not harm them." The human stirred but did not scream. He looked up slowly. His face was dirty, streaked with ash and blood, but his eyes were calm. He raised his hands not in attack but in peace. The small hatchlings in his arms shifted, chirping softly but not in fear. They were warm, safe, and alive. Eryx circled lower, trying to understand. Dragons are born knowing instinct, and instinct told him that humans should run from dragons, that they should hide or fight. Yet this one stayed. The human's gaze met his, steady and unafraid. Lyra landed nearby, silver wings folding neatly. She sniffed the air, frowning. "He smells of smoke, and something else. The hatchlings are warm." He kept them alive. Eryx's claws dug into the rock. "How?" he growled. "Humans are weak. How did he survive the night with them?" The human spoke, his voice soft but strong. "They were trapped. The storm collapsed the vent. I found them and I stayed. I kept them warm." The words made the dragons pause. They listened. Every word confirmed something incredible. The human had risked himself for the hatchlings, not out of fear, not for reward, not for power, but to protect. Eryx felt a strange heat rise in his chest, not fire but something new. Trust. Dragons had never given trust lightly, and yet, here it was, offered by instinct and courage. Still he was cautious. He lowered his wings slightly but kept his body tense. "Why do you not flee?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Why stay with them when you could run?" The human met his eyes, calm as the dawn light. "Because leaving them meant death. I could not leave them." The hatchlings stirred, stretching tiny wings and peeping. They nuzzled into the human's chest, curling against his warmth. Eric's watched, his heart thundering in ways he did not expect. For the first time he saw that strength did not always belong to dragons. Sometimes it lived in the smallest, weakest beings who chose to act when no one was watching. The fog began to lift, sunlight spilling into the valley. Eric spread his wings, feeling the wind and the warmth of the first light. He had not yet made a decision. The human was still alive, the hatchlings safe, but the world of dragons was built on fire, instinct, and survival. This human, this fragile creature, challenged all of it. And as the valley held its breath, Eric's realized that this dawn would change everything. The sun climbed higher, casting warm light over the jagged valley. The dragons circled above, wings folding and unfolding, their eyes fixed on the human below. He did not move. He did not scream. He simply sat, cradling the small hatchlings against his chest, breathing shallow but steady. Eric's descended slowly, each beat of his wings stirring the dust and ash on the ground. He landed a short distance away, claws sinking into rock. His massive head lowered to meet the human's eyes. The human, Evan Cole as Eric's now learned, looked up calmly, dirt and blood streaking his face, but nothing in him screamed fear. He only raised his hands slightly, palms open as if to say, "I mean no harm." "Human," Eric's rumbled, his deep voice echoing off the cliffs. "Why do you not run? Why do you not hide from us?" Evan blinked, his arms tightening around the hatchlings. "If I leave them they die," he said simply. "I can't leave them." The words were strange to Eric's. Dragons had never known a creature that stayed in the face of danger, that did not flee when fire threatened. Instinct screamed at him, kill first, judge later, but curiosity held him back. Something about this human was different. Lyra landed beside Eric's, her silver wings folding neatly. She sniffed the air around Evan, her tail twitching. "He smells faint of smoke and heat," she said softly. "He kept the hatchlings alive." Evan shifted slightly, revealing more of the small dragons. They slept curled against him, bodies rising and falling with quiet breaths. Their tiny wings twitched occasionally. Eric's leaned closer, examining the hatchlings. He could see faint scorch marks on their scales from the storm and small cuts on their claws. They had survived against all odds. "Show me how," Eric's commanded, his voice firm but cautious. "How did you keep them safe through the storm?" Evan lowered his eyes, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the hatchlings. There was a vent. Lava vent. The storm broke the rocks around it. They couldn't move. I used what I had to make a shield. Heat sheets, old metal from the ruins. I stayed with them. I held them. That's all. Eric's eyes narrowed. The human spoke like it was nothing, yet the act required patience, courage, and strength. Dragons valued power, fire, and survival, but this human had endured with nothing but care and determination. It was unfamiliar. "Why?" Lyra asked quietly. "Why risk your life for creatures so small?" Evan looked up, meeting her silver eyes with calm certainty. "Because they have a life. Because someone has to. Because if I leave they die and I cannot let that happen." The words hung in the air. Eric's felt a strange warmth in his chest, something he did not understand. Dragons do not trust easily, and they do not forgive quickly, yet this human's actions challenged everything Eric's thought he knew. Suddenly, a low rumble sounded from the cliffs above. A group of younger dragons had returned, circling cautiously. One of them, a black-scaled female named Kara, landed near the group, her eyes flicking between Evan and the hatchlings. "Leader," she said, her voice tight, "the others wanted to attack. They smelled human blood and thought the worst. They held back because of you, but they are restless." Eric spread his wings, lifting slightly. "Restless or not, they will not touch him while I am here. He is interesting." Evan looked up at him, a faint smile on his dirty face. "I don't understand your words," he said. "But I will not hurt your children. I only help them." The hatchlings stirred, blinking their wide eyes at Eric's. One, the smallest of them, nuzzled into Evan's neck. The others shifted closer to him. Their trust was complete and their bond with the human was clear. Dragons rely on instinct, and instinct told Eric's that something remarkable was happening. Eric's lowered his massive head to the human's level. His warm breath stirred Evan's hair. "You do not run. You do not hide. You stay when it would be safe to leave. You do this for them, not for yourself, not for honor, not for gain." Evan's hands tightened around the hatchlings. "I do not do it for praise. I do it because no one else is here. If I leave they die. That is all." Lyra tilted her head, studying the human. "Do you understand what he says?" Eric's asked. "I think I do," Evan replied slowly. You mean, they trust me? Even though I am small, I am weak. They do not fear me. Eric's gave a low growl, not of anger, but of contemplation. Humans are short-lived, fragile, and weak, yet this one had something dragons lacked. He had courage, patience, and compassion. And more than that, he had stayed when it was easier to flee. For a long moment, the valley was silent except for the soft breathing of the hatchlings and the distant wind. Eric's mind raced. Dragons fight to survive. They soar, hunt, and rule. They expect weakness in others. But Evan, human, fragile, and yet unyielding, had changed the rules. Kara stepped closer. Leader, what now? Do we take him? Eric shook his massive head. No. Not yet. We watch. We learn. The human did not know the power of his presence. He did not realize that dragons, creatures who had ruled the skies for centuries, were measuring him, testing him, and learning from him. He only knew the hatchlings were safe. And for him that was enough. As the sun rose fully, the valley began to glow with soft golden light. Dust swirled in the breeze and the fog lifted. Eric's looked at Evan still sitting with the hatchlings and felt something strange, respect. Not the shallow respect for power or fire, but deep, instinctual respect for courage and care. Evan shifted, humming softly to the hatchlings. Their tiny heads pressed into his chest, their scales warming against his skin. Dragons had never seen a human like this. They had never imagined such patience, such bravery, such selfless action. The wind stirred again, carrying with it the distant calls of the other pack members circling above. They waited, watching, silent. And Evan, the human who did not run, remained seated, calm and steady, guarding the dragon's young with his own warmth. In that moment, the first light of day revealed something new. The valley was not just a place of survival. It was a place of choice. And the human had already made his. The valley was still quiet, but the air trembled with tension. The young dragons hovered, restless, their wings fluttering like restless shadows. Eric's lowered his massive head toward the human Evan Cole, whose arms were still wrapped tightly around the hatchlings. The sun had climbed higher, casting long light across the jagged rocks, but the warmth of day did little to calm the dragon's caution. Eric's golden eyes studied Evan closely. Human, he said, his deep rumble shaking the rocks beneath him, you have stayed with our hatchlings. You have protected them. You have not fled. But words do not prove trust. Actions do. Evan looked up slowly. I understand, he said, though his voice was small against the roar of dragons. I only want to keep them safe. That is all I can do. Lyra, the silver scout, stepped closer to Eric's. Her wings gleamed in the sun. Leader, the pack is restless. They sense weakness. They smell the human's blood and fear that he might fail. Some want to test him. Eric's nodded. He turned his massive head toward the cliffs, signaling to the younger dragons to circle lower. One of the black-scaled females, Kara, hovered closer to the human, flames flickering at the edges of her mouth. We will see if he is as brave as he claims, she said, her tail swishing. Evan tightened his hold on the hatchlings. His hands shook slightly but he did not flinch. He could smell the heat in the air, the scent of fire, of raw dragon power. One misstep, one wrong movement, and a flame could reduce everything to ash. But he did not move. He only pressed the hatchlings closer and held them tightly. Eric stepped forward, lowering his wings to the ground. Sparks of fire danced along the edges of his teeth as he tested the human. He exhaled a small, controlled jet of flame, just enough to warm the rocks near Evan's feet. The human flinched slightly but did not move toward or away from the hatchlings. His calm, careful stance surprised even the older dragons. Interesting, Eric's muttered. He does not run but he does not provoke. He only shields them. Lyra hovered closer, her silver wings flicking. Leader, he is ready. Let us see if his courage can endure real danger. Eric's nodded. He stepped back and signaled Kara. The black-scaled dragon lifted into the sky and spiraled downward, flames flickering toward the rocks near Evan. The human did not scream. He did not move his hands from the hatchlings. His breath came steady, slow, and careful. The flames licked close, dangerously close, yet he shielded the hatchlings with his body, shifting them to avoid any contact with fire. The hatchlings stirred but did not cry. They trusted him. They knew he would not harm them. And that simple trust amazed the dragons. Eric's landed again near the human. Tell me, human. How do you survive fire that would kill any other human? He asked. Evan looked up at him. I stay calm. I move carefully. I do not panic. I only think of keeping them safe. That is all. The dragons exchanged glances. Instinct told them humans were weak, fragile, and short-lived. Yet Evan demonstrated strength beyond mere survival. He had patience, courage, and care. He had stayed when others would flee. Eric circled slowly above Evan, watching him. "And if a mistake is made?" he asked. "If a flame touches them?" Evan tightened his hold on the hatchlings. "Then I fix it. I do what I can. I do not give up. I cannot give up." Lyra tilted her head. "Leader, he is extraordinary. No human has ever shown this level of bravery with hatchlings. They are small, weak, and fragile, yet he acts as though they are the most important thing in the world." Eric's lowered his head, considering. "He is unusual. But does that mean we trust him? Dragons do not give trust lightly. Trust must be earned, and it is tested through fire, danger, and action." He motioned to the younger dragons. "Come closer. Observe. Learn. See what humanity can endure when no one watches." The young dragons hovered near, watching Evan carefully. He adjusted the hatchlings, whispering softly, moving them just enough to avoid the heat from Kara's controlled flames. Sweat dripped down his face, but his hands did not tremble. His heart pounded, yet he did not panic. Eric's watched every movement. He saw the care in Evan's hands, the determination in his eyes, and the calm in his voice. He saw courage that came not from fire, wings, or teeth, but from the choice to stay, to protect, and to endure. After what seemed like hours, though it was only minutes, Eric's finally stepped back. The flames ceased. Kara spiraled upward, and the younger dragons landed quietly. The human remained in place, chest rising and falling, still holding the hatchlings. Eric's lowered his massive head to Evan's level, nostrils flaring to catch the human's scent. "You have endured fire. You have endured fear. You have kept our young alive when any other would have fled. That is impressive." Evan blinked, exhausted. I only did what I had to do," he said. "I only stayed with them." Eric's let out a low rumble that was almost approval. "It is not only what you do but how you do it. Calm, careful, steadfast. This is strength humans rarely show. Perhaps there is more to your kind than we thought." Lyra tilted her head, her silver wings folding. "Leader, they will follow your decision. If you accept him, the hatchlings will accept him too." Eric's golden eyes studied Evan one last time. The human's courage was clear. His care was clear. And most important of all, he had stayed when leaving was easier, safer, natural. Dragons were born to rule, yet this human had ruled his fear, his weakness, and his limits. "Rise, human," Eric said finally. "You have passed the first test. You have proven that courage is not fire or strength. It is choice. You have chosen to protect, and that is rare indeed." Evan slowly stood, the hatchling still safe in his arms. He looked at Eric's and the pack, his chest heaving. I only wanted to help," he said softly. Eric's nodded. "Then know this, human. You have earned our attention. But this is only the beginning. Trust is fragile. It must be tested again. But today, you have survived the first test. And that is more than many dragons can say." The hatchlings stirred, blinking at their parents and the human. They chirped softly, curling closer against Evan's chest. Dragons had never seen this before. They had never seen trust offered and earned so quickly. And for Eric's, for Lyra, and for the rest of the pack, the human had passed the first trial. For the first time, dragons realized that bravery came in many forms, and that sometimes the smallest and weakest creatures could hold courage stronger than fire. The sun was high now, painting the valley in gold and orange light. The dragons circled above, wings slicing through the warm air, eyes fixed on the human who had stayed with the hatchlings all night. Evan Cole sat on the rocks, exhausted but alert, his arms still cradling the tiny dragons. The hatchlings stirred occasionally, their small claws brushing his skin, and yet they remained calm, trusting him completely. Eric's landed near Evan, the ground trembling beneath his claws. He lowered his head, studying the human carefully. The pack was restless, murmuring among themselves in low rumbles and chirps. They had never seen a human act like this. Humans are short-lived, fragile, and weak. Their survival depends on caution and hiding. Yet here was one who had stayed, who had protected dragon hatchlings through storm and cold, without weapons, without power. Lyra hovered beside Eric's, silver wings catching the sunlight. "Leader," she said softly, "this human, he is different. I have never seen a human act with such care. He does not act out of fear, hunger, or ambition. He acts because it is right." Eric's growled low, considering her words. Dragons rely on instinct, on strength, on fire. They rule the skies because they are born to dominate, and yet, This human had survived and thrived in ways dragons could not understand. It was not strength in the body but in the mind and heart. Kara, the black-scaled female, landed nearby, her eyes narrowing. Leader, the hatchlings are drawn to him. They prefer his warmth over ours. They chirp and nuzzle him as though he is their mother. How can this be? He is human. He is small. He is nothing compared to us. Eric's golden eyes softened slightly. Do you not see? That is exactly the point. Humans are small and fragile. They should be weak. But sometimes they choose to act when survival would tell them to flee. They endure. They protect. That is strength of a different kind. One we do not measure with fire or claws. Evan shifted, adjusting the hatchlings carefully. I don't know what you mean, he said quietly. I only did what I had to do. I stayed because if I left they would die. That's all. Eric's tilted his massive head. And yet, in your choice, you have shown courage dragons rarely recognize in their own kind. You have survived storm, cold, and fire through patience and care, not power. You have protected when you could have fled. That is remarkable, human. The hatchlings stirred, blinking up at Eric's and the other dragons. Their tiny heads nuzzled Evan, and their soft chirps carried in the wind. Eric's lowered his head closer to them. He had expected fear, perhaps hesitation. Instead he saw trust. He saw life. He saw the results of a human's quiet bravery. Lyra's silver wings fluttered as she spoke. Leader, our pack has hunted humans before. We have feared them, mocked them, ignored them. Yet this human, he acts for others, not for gain, not for survival, not for revenge. He acts for those who cannot act for themselves. Eric's considered this. Dragons have long judged strength by power and dominance. A human had no teeth sharp enough to tear flesh, no wings strong enough to soar for days, no fire to rival theirs. Yet Evan had accomplished what dragons cannot always achieve, the complete trust of young hatchlings and the survival of those too small to protect themselves. Perhaps, Eric said slowly, we have underestimated humans. We see them as weak, fragile, short-lived. But in moments when courage is a choice, when action is needed not for gain but for protection, they can endure more than even we expect. Kara lowered her wings, her black eyes thoughtful. Do you mean, they are stronger than they appear? Stronger in ways we do not measure, Eric's replied. We measure strength by fire and flight, by claws and wings. Humans measure strength by endurance, by care, by the courage to stay when leaving would be easier. That is why the hatchlings trust him. That is why he survived. The other young dragons circled closer, silent but attentive. They listened to the words, felt the meaning in the pauses, and began to understand. Trust, courage, and care were forces dragons had ignored for centuries. And now, in this quiet valley under the rising sun, they saw them in action. Evan shifted again, looking up at the dragons. I didn't know you were watching, he said quietly. I only wanted to help. I only wanted them to survive the night. Eric stepped closer, his shadow falling over Evan and the hatchlings. That is precisely why you are remarkable, he said. You act not for glory, not for dominance, not for power. You act for others. That is courage dragons rarely see, and strength dragons rarely understand. You have shown us something new about humanity. Lyra tilted her head. We have learned a lesson today, leader. Strength is not always fire or claws. Sometimes, it is patience, endurance, and care. Humans, they endure in ways that challenge even us. Eric's rumbled low, his deep voice shaking the valley. Yes, let the pack remember this. Let the hatchlings remember this. Humans are not our prey. Not all of them. Some can teach us what courage truly means. And this one, he said looking at Evan, has already begun. The hatchlings stirred and nuzzled Evan, their small claws brushing his skin, and he smiled tiredly. I don't feel special, he said softly. I just did what I thought was right. Eric's lowered his head to meet Evan's eyes. That is exactly what makes you extraordinary, human. Not the fire in your hands, not the strength in your body, not the fear you conquer, but the choice to act when no one else does. That is what dragons can learn from you. The valley was silent except for the gentle rustle of wings and the soft chirps of the hatchlings. The sun shone fully now, illuminating the small human and the dragons around him. In that light, the dragons understood something they had not known before, that bravery and strength could exist in forms smaller and quieter than their own, and that even the weakest-looking creatures could teach lessons that giants could not. Eric spread his wings, feeling the wind lift him slightly. Watch carefully, pack. Learn well. Today we have discovered a truth we cannot ignore. Humans endure, protect, and choose courage. Perhaps in the future they may walk among us not as prey but as allies. And it is because of this human, he said, nodding at Evan, that we see it first. The young dragons hovered closer, silent but attentive, their eyes wide. Even the hatchlings chirped softly, sensing the importance of this moment. A human had changed their understanding. A human had shown a strength dragons could neither command nor replicate. And for the first time, they knew that humanity's greatest power was not fire or claws, it was courage, patience, and care. The valley was calm now. The sun had risen fully, spilling gold and warm light over the jagged rocks. The fog was gone and the wind blew gently through the cliffs. The dragons circled above, wings wide and steady, watching Evan Cole as he sat with the hatchling still cradled in his arms. 4 hours the pack had observed him, tested him, and learned from him. Now the time had come for a choice. Eryx descended slowly, his massive wings stirring dust and small stones. His golden eyes studied Evan carefully. Around him, the younger dragons hovered, their attention fixed on both leader and human. Even Kara and Lyra circled closer, quiet and thoughtful. No dragon had ever trusted a human so fully. Human, Eryx said, his deep voice shaking the valley, you have stayed when leaving was easier. You have endured fire, storm, and fear. You have protected our young when it was not required of you, and you have done it without thought for reward or gain. You have shown us courage dragons rarely see. Evan looked up, tired but calm, his small body aching from hours of holding the hatchlings. I only did what I had to do, he said softly. I only wanted to help them survive the night. Eryx lowered his massive head closer, his warm breath brushing the human's hair. It is because of what you did and how you did it, that the pack has learned something new. We have learned that strength is not only in fire, claws, and wings. Sometimes it is in endurance, care, and courage when no one is watching. You have taught us this lesson. The hatchlings chirped softly, stretching tiny wings as they looked up at both Eryx and Evan. They nuzzled into Evan's chest, curling closer. The dragons noticed this and felt a strange sense of awe. The smallest and weakest creatures had found safety in a human. Dragons had never imagined this. Lyra hovered near Eryx. Leader, she said softly, we must recognize him. The hatchlings follow him. They trust him completely. It is not only courage, it is guardianship. This human is more than we expected. Eryx nodded slowly. Yes, he is a guardian. Not like any human before. He has earned a place among us, even if he is small, short-lived, and fragile. He has proven his worth. Evan's eyes widened. Place among you? He whispered. I don't understand. Humans do not usually walk with dragons, Eryx said, his voice low and rumbling. You have risked yourself for others, shown patience, courage, and care beyond what dragons thought possible. We honor that. You will walk among us without fear, and the hatchlings will recognize you as one of their own. Kara landed nearby, black wings folding neatly against her back. Leader, what does this mean for the pack? She asked. It means, Eryx said slowly, that the pack has learned something about humanity. They endure, protect, and act when leaving would be easier. They can be trusted when they choose to act for the good of others. And Evan, he said looking directly at the human, you are the first to show this. You are the first human recognized by the pack as a guardian. Evan's breath caught in his throat. He had never imagined dragons would speak like this or see humans in such a way. His arms tightened around the hatchlings, but he did not feel fear, only awe. I am just a human, he said softly. I only did what I thought was right. Eryx lowered his massive head so that it was level with Evan. That is precisely why you are extraordinary. Courage is not always fire. Strength is not always wings. Sometimes it is in choosing to stay, to endure, and to protect when leaving would be easier. Today you have shown us all what that means. The younger dragons hovered closer, their wings beating slowly. Even the hatchlings lifted their heads to look at the pack, chirping softly. They had accepted Evan. They trusted him completely. And in that moment, the dragons understood that humans could teach lessons that dragons themselves could not. Evan finally stood fully, carefully adjusting the hatchlings so they were safe in his arms. He looked at Eryx, then at the pack circling above, and realized something he had never expected. He was not alone. He was part of something greater. Dragons, fierce and ancient, had accepted him. Eryx spread his wings wide, the sunlight gleaming off his golden scales. Go, he said, his voice deep and commanding. Walk among the hatchlings. Protect them as you have done. The pack will honor you and follow your guidance. You are a guardian, Evan Cole. Remember this, for it is not a gift we give lightly. Evan nodded, his chest swelling with emotion. He had only wanted to help to keep the hatchlings alive through one night. He had not imagined he would be recognized by dragons as a guardian, as someone to be trusted and respected. Yet here he was, standing in the valley, with dragons circling and hatchlings chirping softly, knowing that he had earned their trust. The hatchlings chirped again and nuzzled closer to him. Their small bodies were warm against his chest. He smiled faintly, feeling a strange sense of belonging. Dragons had ruled the skies for centuries, and humans had always seemed small and fragile. But now, Evan understood that strength is more than fire, wings, or claws. It is patience. It is endurance. It is courage when no one else is watching. Erix watched as Evan slowly walked among the hatchlings, letting them climb on his arms and shoulders. The other dragons followed cautiously, circling above, studying the human who had earned their respect. Even Kara and Lyra hovered close, their eyes soft with approval. "Let the valley remember this day," Erix said finally. "Let the pack remember that courage and strength come in many forms. Humans endure. They protect. They act when no one else will. And Evan," he said, his voice carrying across the cliffs, "you have shown us all what that means." The wind blew softly through the valley, rustling the rocks and the scales of the dragons. The sun shone fully now, painting the cliffs and the hatchlings in gold. Evan stood tall, exhausted but proud, surrounded by the creatures he had protected. For the first time he felt that humans and dragons could understand each other. That trust could exist between species. That courage could bridge the gap between fragile humans and mighty dragons. And at first light, with the hatchlings safe and the dragons circling overhead, Evan Cole knew that he had found a place in the valley that no human had ever known. He had become a guardian, not through power or fire, but through care, courage, and the choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. The dragons roared softly, a sound that echoed through the cliffs and across the valley, not in anger but in approval. They had learned from a human today and the valley would never forget it. Evan, the small and fragile human, had shown them a lesson they would carry for generations. The hatchlings chirped happily, curling closer against his chest. Evan smiled faintly, feeling warmth in his heart. He had done what he thought was right, and in doing so, he had earned a place among the dragons. At first light, trust had been formed, courage had been recognized, and a guardian had been accepted. The valley was quiet again, but it was a new kind of quiet, full of understanding, respect, and hope. The dragons had learned what humans could endure. The humans had shown what courage truly meant. And together they faced the dawn, ready for whatever the future might bring.